back with the author of Midnight in Washington, Congressman Adam Schiff. It begins on January 6th. What was your experience of that day?
I was on the House floor for the entire attempted insurrection, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on outside the building. I had been asked to be one of the managers of the effort to stop the Republicans from overturning the election, and the first thing I knew that something was wrong, I looked up and the speaker was no longer in her chair.
Never a good sign.
Never a good sign, especially when she was supposed to be in the chair.
Mm-hmm. Was there some kind of a wily coyote cloud of dust, like?
No, but that came soon after, because the Capitol Police came back onto the floor, grabbed our number 2, Steny Hoyer, and whisked him off the floor so fast I remember thinking, I've never seen Steny move that fast. And then they came back on the floor and told us that there were rioters in the building. They told us to get out gas masks. They told us we might need to get down on the ground. And, you know, before long, I could hear thudding against the doors and breaking glass as this mob was trying to get into the chamber. And a couple of Republicans came up to me and said, "You can't let them see you. I know these people. I can talk to these people. You're in a whole different situation. You can't let them see you." And at first I was oddly touched by their concern for me. And then that soon gave way to the sense that if they hadn't been lying about the election, I wouldn't need to worry about my security. None of us would.
Now, you say in the book, it infuriated me that many Republicans in Congress continued to push the lie because, unlike the insurrectionists, they had to know it was a lie. In that way, they were as culpable as anyone for the tragic events of January 6th. And the metaphor that I've used in this regard is that it seems like the Justice Department presently is going after street-level addicts. And what they were addicted to was the lie that was being fed to them. But the Justice Department isn't going after the drug pushers, the kingpins, the people in the government, the people who knew better but were profiting off of the itch that they knew a certain member of the public wanted scratched.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very good, all too good analogy. And it's why in the days after the insurrection, and this is not uncommon, I think, when people go through something traumatic, the trauma increases over time. And as I watched more and more of the footage of these insurrectionists beating police officers and bear spraying them and gouging their eyes, I remember thinking, okay, these people really believe that lie. But inside the chamber, these insurrectionists in suits and ties, they understood it was a lie. And that, to me, was just unforgivable. If we cannot trust that our elections can be used to legitimately decide disputes or who should govern, then it leaves it open to violence. And they continue to push that lie. Just a week ago, Steve Scalise, one of the top Republicans in the House, was asked repeatedly on Fox, can you just say the election wasn't stolen? And he couldn't bring himself to do it. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is I saw these colleagues of mine change in 4 years. I saw them slowly surrender to the immorality of this president. And I wanted to explain, how does that happen? How do people who once believed in an ideology, who once believed in morality, come to so easily capitulate to someone with such apparent flaws? Because at the end of the day, it's not a problem in how our Constitution is drafted. The Constitution is brilliant. But if people don't uphold their oath, if they don't give content to those provisions in the Constitution, if they don't live up to the spirit in which they were written, none of it works.
One of the things that breaks my heart most when I was preparing for this interview today, thinking about that day on January 6th, as heartbreaking as that day is, in some ways more heartbreaking to me and more harrowing to me is how that terrible day that was recognized as a terrible day at the time, even by the people who had been promulgating the lie, is now being reframed as a protest. That those people who were arrested, those people who were being prosecuted for their actions, are somehow being persecuted for their exercise of their First Amendment rights, that we're being gaslit into believing that, in a sense, that day didn't happen. And the reason why this breaks my heart in a unique way is that while it is the second most horrific day of my life next to 9/11, at least on 9/11, there was no one afterwards saying, it wasn't really a tragedy. It was actually just a protest. And there are people in Congress who are doing that now.
And you're absolutely right. I remember vividly walking through the tunnels under the Capitol right after Ashley Babbitt was shot and thinking to myself, because I was in Congress on 9/11, and I remember how that tragedy brought the country together, because that was an attack from outside the country. And I remember as I was walking through those tunnels on January 6th thinking that this was not going to have the same impact on the country, because this attack, unlike that attack, came from within. And this attack was inspired by people working in the building. And sure enough, it's exactly as you say. There was a moment after the insurrection when the Republican Party leadership thought about casting aside that awful former president, seeing the destruction that he had wrought. They thought about casting him aside, and that flickering of conscience, in the case of Kevin McCarthy, lasted about 30 seconds. With Mitch McConnell, you could see him struggle with this, but ultimately conclude that if he tried to throw Trump overboard, he would be thrown overboard. And my feeling is, then be thrown overboard. I don't see the point of serving in Congress if at a time when the country desperately needs you, you're not willing to do your job.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much for being here. Go find the truth, please.
I'm on it.
The book, Midnight in Washington, is available now. Congressman Adam Schiff, everybody. We'll be right back with a performance by Casey Musgraves.